Hello, ladies and gentlemen, once again to another wonderful edition of Rediscovering Your Passion and Purpose with Patty. I am Patty Stuhlin, the Chief Pathfinder of Pathways with Patty. And again, I have another absolutely wonderful guest. And it's for me, in the way that I believe in things, God brings people into your life at certain times of your life based on where you are at and where you are going. And with my guest today, that is no exception whatsoever. Many of you have heard me talk about and say that over the last 18 months, I started a whole brand new pathway in my life, and that was becoming a public speaker, which has led me down the road to many new pathways. But on that pathway of being a public speaker, I have met some incredible people, and one of those people is right here with me today, and that is Marla Press. We have been tribe mates basically over the last 18 months of learning our passion and purpose when it comes to public speaking. And Marla, I just want to do a real quick introduction for you, and then we're going to get going here, if that sounds good to you.
Yep,
Marla Press, excellent. Marla Press is the founder of Speakers on Fire, is a public speaking coach, life coach, and art of presence trainer. She shows you how to develop unwavering confidence, master your presence, and create a bigger impact by entertaining your audience while building trust and connection. You'll get fired up about what you do and fire up your audience, so they're excited to work with you. Invite Marla to speak at your event, and she will get your audience fired up while demonstrating solutions to their challenges. If you want to attract more clients and wealth and be hot off the press, Marla Press is your coach. Once again, welcome, Marla. I am very happy to have you here today. How are you?
I'm doing great, Patty. I'm so excited to be here because you are so passionate and so purposeful, and this is what I live for. So this is fantastic.
That is awesome. And that, as you know, is the purpose of this passionate podcast that I have, all those P's spitting out there. But one of the things that we have had a chance to do is to experience some things in person together, some live entertainment, so to speak, learning how to present in front of audiences. And one of the things that I know that we've shared little bits and pieces of are stories, but I know that you have a story that I knew coming upon looking at the guests that I wanted to have on this podcast. You have a story to tell that is one that many people can learn from. So with that, please share your story of basically where you started and what brought you to this point.
Yes, thank you so much, Patty. I have a long dash. So
yeah, good.
And I hope to make it a lot longer. We'll talk about that more later. But, I like to start where it all started for me. And that is when I was only 3 years old. And my parents got divorced, and I love my dad. And so it was traumatic when he moved out. And my mom worked full time. She was never a stay-at-home mom. She worked full time. So I had babysitters a lot. And she was stressed out. Let's just say that. And that wasn't helpful. And then she remarried when I was only 5. And my stepfather, he didn't want to be a dad to me. He had his own 3 kids, and that was his life. And he also worked really hard and loved his work and loved my mom, but he wasn't a good dad. And then my stepbrother, his son, was 12 when I was only 5, and he was a big kid. He ended up being a good basketball player. He was a big kid. He was 12 and I was 5. And he would grab me and take me places and make me sit on his lap. And I knew it was wrong. I knew it felt really bad. And then, still when I was 5, he would masturbate and make me watch him and hold me down. And within the next couple of years, sometimes I would wake up in the middle of the night and he'd be next to my bed touching me. So I was already a very introverted kid, and I didn't feel close to my mom, certainly not my stepfather. And so I didn't tell anybody.
Now, were you living full time with your mom, or
Yes.
did you go back and forth between your parents?
I did see my dad on the weekends. And so that was helpful because my dad's fantastic. And he wanted to be a father. Whereas, my mom later on in life, my mom and I had wonderful relationship, but she wasn't a very good mom when I was a kid. She was very into her own life. And I tell this story, not because I need to tell the story, because it happened a long time ago. It actually happened over quite a few years, but it was a long time ago. So it's not because I need to, but what I know is that, and I may not get the statistics right because they change all the time, but every minute in the United States, someone is sexually abused. Every minute.
What a horrible statistic.
Yeah, in foreign countries, it's even worse. Women are really abused in some of the other countries. So that's just in the United States.
Wow.
And, I think it's 1 in 5 women have been sexually abused. And that's not just rape, that's, types of things that happen to me. And so it's really prevalent. And men too. Men have been sexually abused, usually by men. But we all either know of someone or it happened to us. And so I tell the story because some people like myself really did work through it and ended up having a great life. Excuse me. But a lot of people really struggle with it. And I struggled with it for a long, long time.
How long did this go on?
More or less, to some degree, the whole time growing up.
Wow.
Yeah. So
did you just continue to become more and more introverted through all of this? Or what did it do to you as far as how you presented yourself to the world?
Yeah. So you're not going to believe this one, Patty, but at some point I overheard my mom saying to someone else when I was fairly young, I'm not sure how old exactly, I think there's something wrong with Marla because she never talks.
Whoa.
I overcame that one because I talk a lot now. All right. And people go, you're not an introvert. There's no way I believe you're an introvert. I am still an introvert, is my nature, but I have learned to be extroverted and to love being around people. But when I was growing up, I didn't make friends easily. I didn't trust people. I started doing drugs at an early age.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So fortunately for me, I was one of the smartest kids in my school. And I loved learning. So I did really well in school, even though I was doing drugs. And
were you doing the drugs to kind of mask how you were feeling about what was happening to you?
Absolutely. Yes. The escape, it just felt good. Absolutely. Yes. So I don't recommend it.
Right. But it's how you were coping. That's the best way that you thought that what you needed to do to cope during that time.
Because I felt like I couldn't tell anybody what had happened to me. And I didn't tell anybody till I was in my late 20s.
Oh my goodness.
So keeping that in was challenging. And I always thought, well, maybe there is something wrong with me. I always felt different. I felt different. Part of that was, I was really, really smart. And part of it was just, I felt shame and confusion and all those things that people feel when they go through this.
Wow.
And, I know some people had it a lot worse than me. And so the other thing that I had going for me that, is throughout my whole life is I'm very creative and I love the arts. So I got introduced to Broadway and to musical plays at an early age, and I fell in love with it. And it was my other escape. I was in plays all the time. I was in dance company. I performed a lot. So that's the beginning of my stage presence, as I was always on a stage. And that was my savior. I mean, I loved it. And, I was pretty good at it. I did choreography where I won competitions for my choreography because it was so creative. And wasn't necessarily the best dancer, but I was really creative with it.
Well, and that was your creative outlet. Well, and going along with that, especially during your teenage years, did you find it difficult to create relationships to make friends, or even start about, think about dating? I mean, was that a tough thing to do?
Yes. Well, like I said, I did have difficulty making friends. I usually had one friend, but I couldn't be in groups of people. I didn't feel comfortable in groups till I was in my 30s did I feel comfortable in groups. And I had trouble making friends, but I craved the boyfriend,
Mm,
to a dysfunctional part, right? It's like I had to
right,
have a boyfriend. And so that wasn't necessarily a good thing.
right. Wow.
But yeah. So I had some good things, but I was really struggling with confidence and how I felt about myself and putting myself out there. And so it continued. So I graduated high school early because I couldn't wait to get out of there. And a
Hmm.
couple other things that were a little different and weird about me is that I
Unique, unique.
unique, weird in a good way. I love weird, right? I love weird. It's quirky, it's fun. So I took up tarot when I was 15. And tarot cards where you kind of tell fortunes
Oh,
and
the tarot cards. You
yeah.
call it tarot. Okay. All right. I know it as
It's
tarot.
French. I call it tarot.
Exact. Okay. Excellent. Now we know.
So I would meet people that I didn't know very well, and I would tell their fortune. And people said, wow, how can you know that about me? And wow, my deepest desires. And I thought, this is pretty cool. And I really I felt like I could be on a different plane. At some point, it almost felt like I could read minds. I mean, I just
Oh,
really got into this weird space of intuition and inner knowing and understanding people. At one point, I was in a dance class and I had an out of body experience. So my consciousness was on the ceiling looking down on myself. I was not in my body at all. And
wow.
it didn't last that long, but I don't know anybody else that was having that experience.
What drug are you on?
I
Just
was
life,
not on
right?
any drugs at that time. I swear to God. In fact, I quit drugs when I was 15. That tells you how early I started drugs. I started when I was about 12.
And you just stopped it cold turkey, or
Yeah, fortunately, I don't have an addictive personality, thank God,
oh yeah.
because I would have been in trouble. So I quit because I was sort of responsible and I knew
Oh,
I was going to learn how to drive. And I thought, well, I'm not going to do drugs and drive. And I didn't
okay.
drink at all during high school. And I thought, I should quit. So I did. And
Wow. Good for you.
yeah. So it was, a year or two later that I had this out of body experience. And I've had a few visions of things happening. So
Well, real quick, with that outer body experience, what did you think it was telling you, or what was the message you believe that it was bringing to you? Any?
I didn't understand it. I had no idea what was going on. And I didn't know. The only message I got was that, and I carry this forward till today, is that reality is not always as it seems.
Mm.
And energy and the universe is this complicated thing that we don't understand. And
So it was bringing you awareness of a level that people talk about but never explore.
yes, yes, absolutely. And so two other incidences that happens, one in my 20s, one in my 50s, which is well, no, not my 20s, probably my 40s and my 50s, was 2 nights before 9/11.
Mm-hmm.
I had really violent dreams where a lot of people were murdered.
Oh my
And
gosh.
I never have violent dreams. That's not what I do. I don't even remember my dreams half the time. But I thought I was getting information from all the chatter that was happening pre 9/11. So that one I never understood.
So
And
when
then,
9/11 happened, then did that whole dream just come flooding back to you?
yeah, because it was the night before 9/11 and the night before that. It was just the 2 nights before. It wasn't way in
Wow.
advance. It was right then and there.
So when
So,
everything started happening, you're just like, whoa, what's going on, right?
and then just the last experience I'll talk about is I was camping and all of a sudden a fire started all around me. And I was actually asleep and I sat up in my tent and I saw the fire. I felt the heat of it. It was really bright. It was all around me. And I kept thinking, is this real? Is this not real? It must be real because I experienced it. It wasn't in my mind. I experienced it all around me and then it just disappeared.
Holy cow.
I know, it's so weird, right? But again, it just taught. And then if I learned a forest fire started, a number of miles away that next morning. So again, it was just this inner knowing that I absorb, and I think all of us have this. So my point with all of this is that we get so attached to our memories and so attached to what we think is reality. And what I help people do is get in their potential FM, not reality FM. If you're a radio station, and some people are in gloomy FM, some people are in reality FM, but even that is not in your potential. There's so much more that we can know and so much more that we can access that we don't realize.
So when you left high school, did you just go on and get a job? Did you go on to higher education, or did you even know, because you left high school early, what it was you wanted to do?
Yeah. Oh, I knew exactly what I wanted to do. So I left high school early because I couldn't wait to go to college. I was bored in high school. And
Okay.
so I left a year early and I went to college. So I went to
Okay.
college a year early to study psychology and philosophy.
Oh.
That's what I was interested in, was, how things we can't understand, and trying to understand them, and how behavior happens. And part of it was probably to fix myself, but part of it is I was fascinated about helping others too, because I knew a lot of people had gone through trauma, some people a lot worse than me, and how could we fix it? And I went to some therapists. So this is another really important point that I really hope people that are listening get. I went to a lot of therapy, didn't help. It didn't help. Talking about what happened didn't get me anywhere. And what I say saved my life, because I was pretty depressed.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I don't know how you would not be.
Yeah. Yeah, because I had some other things. I won't even tell you the whole story about other things that happened. So what saved my life was something called LifeSpring. I don't know if anyone out there has ever experienced that, but some people thought it was a cult. It was not a cult, but it was something I did for a couple of years, and there was program after program. And what it was experiential exercises to overcome anything you needed to overcome and become a better person.
Now, did somebody introduce you to this, or you discovered it on your own, or was it through your courses in college that you came across this?
So I got a degree in psychology. I did a year of graduate level study in psychology, and then where I was going to school only accepted PhD applications. And again, my confidence level wasn't very good. And I thought, well, I'm not ready for a PhD. I'll do something else. So I went into dental hygiene. And
that's quite a shift.
I know. You're thinking, it's quite a shift. But my mom was a hygienist and my stepfather was a dentist, and I worked in their office in high school. So I knew it, like the back of my hand. And my mom was the office manager, the hygienist, and they brought all that home all the time. They worked 6 days a week. They were really into it. So I knew that profession well enough to say, plus I always loved science. So, even though I studied psychology and the arts, I also loved chemistry. I love biology. I love all of that. Okay. And so it seemed like a fit for me. And I thought, well, I'll do it temporarily, right?
Right. Yes.
And 40 years later, but we'll get to that in a minute. So, but I was depressed because, I didn't really want to go to dental hygiene school. I was just kind of doing it because I didn't know what else to do. In fact, when I applied to dental hygiene school, they almost begged me to apply to their dental school because they said I scored higher than any of the dental applicants on my testing. And I had already had a bachelor's degree. No one else had a bachelor's degree. They only accepted 16 students in the dental hygiene class per year because, we each had to have, patients, and it was clinical, plus it was all the study, the science and everything. And, I was at the top of my class. And again, I didn't relate to people in the class that well. I had one friend, as I often do, I have one friend, but, they would do study groups and I would go out dancing or something because, and I would still get 100% on the tests. And they were, some of the other students couldn't relate to me, and they were trying to grade on a curve. And then they were like, but Marla's getting the 100%. So what should we do here? So it's just a weird time. And I actually got a disease and became anemic, and I have werewolf's disease, but we won't get into that either. We could talk about so many things. So, but one of my dental hygiene teachers really took a liking to me, and she noticed that, I was struggling, and she is the one that recommended this LifeSpring.
Wow.
So how it saved my life is because it was these experiential exercises. And I talk about that because that's what I do today. I take people through experiential exercises because I believe that's the way we learn, and that's the way we transform. Okay. Through exercises, not by intellectualizing about stuff. Whether it's public speaking or whether it's life coaching, it's so helpful to go through an exercise where you experience something.
So in these exercises, is it taking you back to the trauma and dealing with that, or what is exactly happening in these exercises?
Yeah, there were, like I said, I did it over a couple of years. So there were so many different ones. But I'll tell you, one of the very first things we did is, and there was, I don't know if there was 100, 150 people in the room. I don't remember how many there were, but we formed 2 circles, and the inner circle faced the outer circle. So you were facing another person, right? So all around the circle, everybody was facing somebody. And what they'd said was, okay, you're going to have 3 choices. Was it 3 or 4? I'm holding up 4 fingers. Maybe it was 4.
It's 4.
You can either just look at the person, you can shake their hand, or you can give them a hug. 3 choices. And so nobody really knew each other, but it was the energy, which is another huge part of what I do now to help people, is master their energy. So it was the energy you give off. So did somebody want to do nothing and just look at you? Did they want to shake your hand, or did they want to give you a hug? And there was no words, nothing. It was totally nonverbal.
No discussion on what you were going to do.
It gave you the experience of how you come off to people with your energy. Wow. And just person by person by person. So instead of saying, do you make friends? And how are you in a group? Or it was giving you the experience of, this is how you affect people. At some point we did do some child parent work. And so one person would sit and one person would stand. Just having someone stand above you can bring back all kinds of memories of, any authority in your life or your parents. And then there was a dyad in exercise. So there was group exercises, there was dyads, there was so many different types of exercises. So I won't take the time to go into them, but one more thing. So to build trust, because trust was an issue for me, instead of talking about how you can trust people, how you can forgive people, all that, we did a ropes course.
Oh, I've done that. I talk about trust. Yes.
Yes. So you got to trust your teammates. We walked across a wire. There's no way I would have done that normally. So it's about trusting yourself. And then trusting, because there were team exercises too. We did the exercise where you fall and someone has to catch you.
Yes.
And so we experienced trust instead of talking about it. So that's just another example. But there were so many. That I did this for 2 years. And it was, I would love to do a whole podcast just on that because it was so amazing. I don't think it exists anymore. People, they tried hard to get people into it. And so people thought of it as a cult. And, there was a lot of psychology in it, but it saved my life. I became a different person. That's when I went back to my parents and I told them about the sexual abuse.
Wow.
That's when I got closer to my dad. That's when I could have better relationships. That's when I can do so much more. But the trajectory of my career was not as quick.
That's something different.
Yeah. So I think, Tony, who we both know, she talks about God's 2x4.
Yes.
And so that's kind of how it was with my career, and a big message I want everyone. So one of the messages that we just talked about was, if you've gone through trauma, yes, counseling can be very helpful. I'm not discouraging anyone from doing that. But if you can find someone who can take you through either neurolinguistic programming, which I also teach, or experiential exercises, I developed exercise. I cured people of phobias. I developed exercises to take people through that really help them transform. And the second thing is, don't wait to live your passion. So I waited way too long. So I was a hygienist, 40 years. I should say it was only 20, just to think that
you can't be
I'm
that
only
old,
40 now. So
you can't be that old.
But so I say that, there was sort of a nudge. So it wasn't a 2x4 right off the bat. It was a nudge. So they cut back my hours at work. So that was sort of, okay, well, what should I do? And I always did something else. I've written books. I've become a life coach. I've done a lot of things before I even have my current career with public speaking coach. So I always did something on the side. But when they cut back my hours where it affected me quite a bit, I had to think, oh, well, maybe I should, really focus on something else. But I didn't. And then, then the hit over the head was COVID. So when COVID happened, we had to shut down. I couldn't work. I did not have a choice.
No.
Dental office were not allowed to operate.
Right.
For 3 months.
Wow.
And hygienists were leaving the profession left and right. And I still thought, well, okay, now's the time. I should quit. But no, I had to really get hit over the head.
You needed something bigger than a 2x4.
Apparently so. And so, it really just came to the realization that, then, my house almost burned down. Both my parents passed away within months of each other. Wow. And, that dash can be short.
Yes, it can.
And that dash is really important. How we live our life is so important. And I don't want to be at the end of it and regret anything. So
I hear you. Amen on that.
Yes. So I'm very fortunate in, my dad was 98 when he passed away.
Oh my goodness.
And my mom was only 92, but everyone, my mom's mom was 96. Everybody that was my dad's sibling, he had a lot of siblings. They all lived well into their 90s. So I believe that I'm going to live to be 100 because I'm going to, of course, surpass my parents.
Well, and right there, when you believe it, I mean, you're planting those seeds and you're putting it out in the universe. And I think that does have something to do with it.
Absolutely.
Because your brain is very powerful, as you know.
Your brain is very powerful, and your desires and your belief system is very powerful. And that makes a huge difference in what you attract. So there's the law of attraction that I totally believe in, and I take it a step further, that it's this embodiment that we could talk about another time, because I know that our time is somewhat short. But living your best dash, I love that, Patty. I mean, and I just have to say, to add some more P's.
We like that. We like
so
that.
You're passionate, you're purposeful, but you're also perfect to have this podcast.
Oh, well, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome, because you give people space to tell their stories. You're not judgmental. You're not interjecting too much. You ask, just the right questions and just the right amount. Sometimes you let people go on, and you're really perfect. Another P for this podcast with Patty.
Thank you
so
very
I thank
much.
You for that.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. But yeah, so, I realized that this is something I'm very passionate about, and I always have been. I started wanting to be a psychologist. Excuse me. So it's just coming back to where my beginnings were. And then the other piece, and the reason I talked about, the vision of the fire and 9/11 and the out-of-body experience, is because energy has always been a big part of my makeup. And that's not high or low energy. That is the energy you give off. I talked about that experience in LifeSpring, where people would respond to you based on the energy you're giving off, and that happens all the time, all day long. You're reacting to other people's energy, and they're reacting to yours without usually verbalizing it out loud, certainly, and not even verbalizing it in their head. It's just a feeling, and then people react. And so a huge part,
and it's that energy you're giving off, right?
Yes. And so I bring that into my speaking program. So I developed this program based on all this psychology, the neurolinguistic programming, and the energy work I've done. So it's not like anything like Toastmasters. It's not like any other speaking program I've ever seen. And I've done a bunch of speaking programs myself because, I want to learn everything. I'm an info junkie.
Good.
And so I love learning, which is fabulous. And that's what I bring into my speaker program. It's because some speakers, they overperform. Some really, 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 really overperform, and they're just constantly at this level, and they're almost yelling at you, and they're so giving and projecting onto you that it doesn't connect with people. It's entertaining. They might think of them as charismatic and maybe even inspiring to some degree, but it takes an unusual person to just be at that level and also get people to connect with them.
Right.
And then there's other people that shrink their energy. And so they're just way too inside themselves. Their energy's right here. It's not expanded. And people, it's too hard to get to that person. So they also don't connect with people, and they don't inspire people and wow people because their energy is shrunken. They might have big hearts and fabulous messages and inspirational stories, but if you can't have the energy in the delivery of it, you're not going to make the impact you want to make.
Right. Oh, that's a good point. Yes.
It's all about helping other people and having that impact. And there's so much to it. So it's not just, not saying and it's not just, having great content. because I tell people, communication is only 10% the words you use.
Right.
And
I used to teach that to my leadership kids. You think it's all about verbal. It's not. It's the nonverbal, which is really the powerful part.
Yes, absolutely. It's 70% your energy and maybe 20% your tone. But that 70% is huge.
Yeah.
And people don't know how to master that or how to balance the wow factor. Because if you're going to be a speaker, you have to have a certain wow factor and then the connection to the audience. How do you have both and balance it just right? And the balance isn't going to be identical for every person. Some people are going to be a little less wow and a little more warm-hearted. And other people are going to be a little more wow, and they really have to work on that connection. But it's
well, and don't you also find, Marla, that it really isn't, even if you don't wish to be a public speaker, it's just how you present yourself out in the world, whether you're at the grocery store, you're at a ball game, you're whatever it is you're doing, it is, as you say, your art of presence. It is your body language, it's how you speak, it's all of it. So it doesn't, this isn't, what you're saying isn't just pertaining to somebody who's doing public speaking. It's just your presence wherever you are, and the energy and what you exude, right? I mean, when you're out in the world,
it helps in every aspect of your life, all your relationships. And it's funny, I told you I listen to all your podcasts because that's what I do. I'm a research info junkie, but they were wonderful. And someone that was speaking, I won't name names, she was saying how, when she met her husband, she couldn't even, maybe it was I won't say, but she was saying when she met her husband, she could not explain it in words, but there was immediate chemistry.
It was my mother. It was my
mother.
mother.
I wasn't going to say, but it was your mother. And I think it was one other person too, talking about that chemistry when they met their potential husband. And that's true that a lot of times we can't put it in words, but we all have experienced that kind of chemistry, and that is your energy.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. And then to also,
it speaks volumes, even though you're not speaking.
Yes, absolutely. And so, and it helps with your kids when you change your energy to be able to talk to your kids in a different place. So I really help people get embodied. And then when they talk to anyone, their kids, their spouse, their potential date, their clients, whoever it is, their teammates, their coworkers, all of that, when you communicate from this other place where you're embodied, you're out of your head energy and you're in your body energy, and you're coming from what I call your home space and your heart space, it's amazing.
Yeah.
And it's so helpful. So that's why I'm so passionate about teaching public speaking in this way, because it helps people in their life.
Oh, yes. Yes. So really what you've kind of done here in the last few moments, because, a couple of questions that I ask everybody is, what are you passionate about personally and professionally? And then the same, what is your purpose personally and professionally? Wouldn't you say you just answered that, didn't you?
Yeah, I'm passionate about so many things. I'm passionate about learning. I'm passionate about dancing. I'm passionate about the arts. I'm passionate about nature. So, this is how you have a well-rounded, great long dash, is to be passionate about a lot of things, because there's so much good in the world. I mean, sometimes I want to get depressed again because the world sucks in some ways right now, but there's so much good out there. And to tune into that, people used to call me Pollyanna because, so I know one of the questions you asked too is, what is your superpower?
Yes, and that was going to be the next one. What is your superpower?
Patty, I'm getting ahead. Sorry.
No, it's good. No, I love it.
So I think one of, I have a couple, but one thing I haven't talked about yet is positivity. And so I've been called Pollyanna because I almost always focus on the positive. This, and this could happen, but what if this, and this happens? We don't know. It could be all good. Why should we focus on the negative? Not that you don't want to be prepared and be, resourceful. Learn how to just be resourceful in general, but also focus on the positive. Believe it's going to be positive.
Yep.
And, that is, it makes you feel better
Yes, it
and it
does.
attracts that positivity.
Yep.
So that's
Because
one
it's
of
what you're putting out in the world, and what you put out, you're going to get back.
absolutely, yes. And, yeah, I've helped friends with positivity and with life coaching clients. It's, again, we don't want to ignore the negative, but we want to focus most of our energy on that positive. And that's been
Amen.
really helpful. And then I'd say also kind of a superpower I've had that I've alluded to earlier was this intuition, this inner knowing
Mm-hmm.
I have.
Mm-hmm.
And that when I work one-on-one with somebody, or even in classes, when I have my boot camps for speakers,
Mm-hmm.
I work individually with each person in the class tremendously. And I focus in on what do they need? What do they need to become an exceptional speaker? What do they need to add to their speaking? It's very, very personalized. And people go, well, how did you know I needed to be bossier? How did you, you know, I can just tell. And,
It's a gift.
yeah. And creativity. I love people who are creative, and I love using my creativity. So in a lot of my videos that I put out, I almost go overboard in trying to do something unusual, and I use props
Mm-hmm.
and creative ideas, and I just love being creative. It just brings me joy.
Well, and a lot of what you're doing with that creativeness that I've seen on social media is you're being very visually creative to get people to think in ways they wouldn't normally see. Wouldn't normally see a woman in a coffin, like you've had on yours. But again, it's visually stimulating to make people think, wait, why is she doing that, and but there is always a point to your visual creativity. There is a message that you are coming across, and it's always a very thought-provoking message that you're sending.
Absolutely. So just for people that are wondering, well, why does she put herself in a coffin? So the point there was that a lot of people feel like they're going to die if they have to do public speaking. So that's why I have the picture of me in a coffin when I'm talking about people. They say public speaking is still the number one fear of most people. It's ahead of death and ahead
Mm-hmm.
of going to the dentist, they'd always say. And
They haven't been to you yet.
it's yeah, it's in those top three, though. If it's not number one, it's absolutely in the top three, and people feel like they'd rather die than risk rejection. Is really why it creates this fear, is because everybody's looking at you,
Mm-hmm.
you're expressing yourself, and people are judging you. They're gonna judge you. They judge you in the first 3 seconds.
And you know what? It doesn't even matter, though, if you are speaking or not. People, it's human nature that we just judge people just when they're walking down the street, So it's like, get up there, present yourself, do it, It's going to be okay, because people are going to say what they want to say. But you know what? You have complete control over how you let that affect you, whether you give your power over to
Absolutely.
that or not.
And then it feels so good once you do it.
Mm-hmm.
Once you do it and survive it, once you do it and you get a good response, because you're going to get a good response. Are you going to get everybody to like you?
No,
Probably not,
no.
but you're going to get a good response, and you're going to have the satisfaction of putting yourself out there, because that feels good. We have this nature that we want to express ourselves. And when we
Mm-hmm.
hold back, a lot of times it causes disease.
Oh,
That's how
yes.
much it affects us. People
Yes.
get, throat cancer, or, in a small amount, when people go to speak, they get literally choked up. They get a lump in their throat
Mm-hmm.
because it affects our whole being so much. But to
It's
go
all
out
that
there and
that
do it.
stress that you put on yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, I encourage people to learn good techniques so you can feel really good about it. So you can get
Mm-hmm.
fired up about public speaking and look forward to it and enjoy it
Yeah.
and have a really good result.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah.
Excellent. So I know you've mentioned several times throughout the podcast about living your best dash, but how would you really define right now in this moment of your life? How is it that you are living your best dash?
Yeah. I finally, quit my day job. Dental hygiene was good in that I got a lot of people content. I live in a community where there's a ton of people say where I live, there's more professionals and there's more startup companies than anywhere else on earth. It's a really interesting place. And so the people I've met have been fantastic. And the staff I work with, fantastic. The doctors I work with, fantastic. I was there 25 years.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm telling you that the 2x4 was really had to hit me because it was hard to let go of that 25-year relationship. I mean, I've, patients hugging me and almost cry, some of them crying when I told them I was leaving. But I always knew that I was really intelligent, really creative, and dental hygiene didn't fulfill me that way. Right. I didn't use my talent. So now I'm using my talents. I'm writing. I'm helping people write their speeches. I also always wanted to be a writer, and the creativity piece, I'm using that. And I'm meeting people from all over the world, thanks to Zoom. I meet people from other countries, let alone all over the United States. And it's so fulfilling and so interesting. And I just love meeting all these interesting people doing great work. There are so many inspirational people, and I'm helping people. I help people transform so quickly that I love it. And then at the same time, I live in Colorado, which is gorgeous.
Yes.
I don't live in Denver. I live in a place where I can go to 20 different trails in 5 minutes. Wow. And they're gorgeous. The Rocky Mountains are right there. I can see them from my window. They're right there. And I love nature. My kids are finally incredible. Not so easy growing up. We won't go into that whole story, but they are so magnificent now. My daughter's in France right now. But both of my kids live near me, and I just love them. I'm so proud of them. And I have very close friends. I've had some of the same friends for 30 some years.
Well, you can just tell the way that you just described everything about living your best dash because of your energy coming from all that you just said. Yes, it is a true testament that you are living your best dash. And that is super cool to see. Are there any final words of wisdom or thoughts that you'd like to share with our audience?
Yeah, I'd like to say, it seems like since COVID, a lot more people are starting their own businesses and they just don't want to work corporate anymore. So there's so many more coaches and consultants and people that are out there wanting to start their own business. But it's a crowded field because there's so many people out there. So first of all, your message is important, really, really important. And you can help a lot of people. So don't hold back. Don't wait till you get hit over the head. Let's just say that too. Don't wait is a huge message I have. And learn good speaking techniques so your message is heard by more people. You can impact more people and you can have joy doing it.
So Marla, if anybody in our audience wants to reach out and connect with you, where would you suggest that they go to be able to connect with you?
Yeah, so my website is really easy to remember if you're not somewhere where you can write things down or looking at the show notes. marlapress.com, really easy to remember.
Yes, it is.
And there you can schedule a time with me. I also have a link tree, and there's links to my social media, my YouTube channel, podcasts I've done, all kinds of ways to connect with me and to check out what I do. But if you go to my website, you can also find all of that. And I'd love to chat with you. I have a hot or not speaker assessment I do. So it's not about me. I make it about you when we chat.
Awesome. Well, ladies and gentlemen, whether you want to just get in touch with your own personal energy and how it deals with not necessarily public speaking or just your essence and how you present yourself in the world, Marla is somebody who can definitely do that. Marla, I want to thank you so much for taking time out of your personal schedule to be with us today. I have enjoyed this conversation immensely. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Patty. I love being with you. You're the perfect person for this, and I love hanging out with you, and I wish you the best of luck too.
Thank you so much. And ladies and gentlemen, remember that her podcast is here you're either watching it on YouTube or you're hearing it on Apple Podcast or Spotify or iHeartRadio, Podbean. There's about 10 platforms that it's on, but whatever platform that you are enjoying this podcast on right now, remember, if you want to connect with me, you can go to www.pathwayswithpatty.org. And you can also sign up to talk with me and get on my list to get on my weekly newsletter handouts that I do each week. And while you're at it, look and find that follow and subscribe button and go ahead and hit that. And that way you're going to know when all of the new podcasts come out. You're going to be front and center to be able to enjoy each and every one, because the guests, as I said before, they just have a wonderful story to share with you and a message that goes along with those stories. So thank you once again for being here with us. I appreciate it as always. Remember to make it a great day or not. The choice is yours, because life is an adventure, and I want you to enjoy the journey because your life matters. Thank you so much for joining us, and God bless you all.